Search for the last button. The first time I saw it, I thought I was losing my mind. It was a normal Tuesday, or at least, it felt like one, at first. I was sitting at my desk in the office, eyes half closed from exhaustion, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead keeping me company as I clicked through the usual backlog of emails. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing to make my pulse quicken or my stomach flip. That is, until I noticed something strange on my desktop. A new icon had appeared, sitting there innocuously next to the rest of my shortcuts. A small square with a faded button on it. It wasn't there when I turned on the computer, I was sure of it. I hovered over it, expecting the usual invalid file message that often pops up when something's wrong with the system. But it didn't. No warning. No error. It just sat there, like it was waiting. I clicked on it. The screen flickered briefly before a new window appeared. It was an empty white screen at first, but a prompt quickly popped up, telling me to click a button. I stared at it for a moment. Click a button, it said, with no further explanation, just a line of text that seemed to shimmer with an eerie glow. I leaned closer to the screen. There were no buttons on the page, not visible ones at least. I clicked again, a little more forcefully, and that's when the buttons began to appear, rows of them, stretching infinitely down the screen. All of them looked exactly the same, plain, gray, and generic. But there was a sense of urgency to them. Like they were waiting for me to choose. I hesitated, thinking it was some kind of bizarre adware. But it wasn't. Not really. I clicked on the first button, more out of curiosity than anything else. The window shifted, and a document appeared. The title was my name, written in bold letters. John Davis, A Life in Shambles. I stared at the title for a moment, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling. That wasn't funny. It wasn't even remotely funny. I skimmed through the first few lines. It wasn't something I had written, hell, it was too polished. But what chilled me was the content, personal details, things only I would know. My first job, the time I got dumped by Lisa, the time I lost my car keys in the snow and had to walk home for 3 hours. It was all there. I shut the laptop down immediately. The screen went black, and for a moment, I felt the kind of relief only someone who had just narrowly escaped something terrible could feel. My breath steadied, my pulse slowed. But then, the sound of the machine turning back on its own, made my heart race again. I didn't touch a single key, didn't press a single button. The program was back. And it was waiting. The prompt reappeared. Click another button. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop out the window, but something held me back. Some twisted curiosity, some sick fascination with the unknown. I clicked on the second button. The new document appeared almost instantly, and as I read, I began to feel the room grow colder. The title of this one was even worse. John Davis, The Mistakes That Define Him. I knew what it was before I even read the first line. It wasn't just my past, it was my present, too. The things I didn't want anyone to know, the things I buried deep, things that kept me up at night. That drunken fight with my boss, the time I lied to get out of jury duty, the countless moments where I let people down and pretended it didn't matter. The kind of secrets you carry with you like stones in your pockets, heavy and suffocating. I could feel my chest tighten as I read, each line more painful than the last. I slammed the laptop shut again, but the sound of the program reopening echoed in my ears. It wasn't over. It was never over. This time, the screen flashed before the prompt appeared again. Click another button. This time, I didn't want to. I didn't want to know what else was in store for me. But I was trapped. I couldn't stop. Something was pulling me in. I clicked. Another document appeared. The title was simple, direct, and devastating. John Davis, The End of It All. It wasn't a biography, not really. It was a warning. A warning about the choices I would make, the paths I would take that would lead to nothing but destruction. It listed names of people I had wronged, people I had hurt without realizing it, people I had taken advantage of. It detailed the last days of my life, the way I would die alone, cold, forgotten by everyone I had ever cared about. My pulse quickened as the document unfolded, each word gnawing at me, urging me to stop, to disconnect, to shut it all down. But I couldn't. I was too far in. Then, the prompt appeared again. Click another button. And I clicked. Of course I clicked. But this time, something was different. There was a warning. A simple message in all caps. Do not click the last button. You will lose your soul. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen as my mind tried to make sense of what was happening. Was this some kind of sick joke? A game? Was I being tested? Or was I being led down some path I couldn't escape from? The screen was silent for a long moment, the flickering glow of the buttons mocking me, daring me to press that final one. What would happen? Would it end? Would I finally get my answers? Or was the warning true? Would pressing the final button be the last thing I ever did? My hand hovered over the keyboard. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with something I couldn't name. I knew I had to make a choice. But which one? I clicked the next button. And the screen went black. I sat there, the room eerily silent now, as though the very walls were holding their breath. For a few moments, I could hear nothing but the pulse in my own ears, the steady thrum of my heartbeat pounding against the weight of the darkness that seemed to have enveloped the room. My eyes, wide and unblinking, stared at the black screen, waiting for something, anything, to happen. I had clicked. The program had gone dark. Was this it? Was this the end? My thoughts scrambled, racing in circles, each one bumping into the next, trying to make sense of the situation. Nothing made sense anymore. I had seen things, horrible things, things that no one should ever know about themselves. But the silence stretched on. My hands were clammy, and despite the cold sweat that clung to my skin, I couldn't tear my gaze away from the monitor. Every inch of me screamed to close the laptop, to just walk away and forget this whole mess. Yet, I couldn't. I felt trapped, not just by the program, but by the weight of what I had already seen, the slow unraveling of my own life in those files, those documents that I hadn't asked for but was forced to read. Each click had revealed more, revealing parts of myself that I never dared confront, parts of me I didn't even know existed. I had already taken so many steps down this twisted path. Could I really stop now? Suddenly, the screen flickered to life again, this time with a cold, mechanical hum that made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. The glowing buttons were back. The same rows of them, stretching endlessly, taunting me, waiting for me to make my next move. The prompt was there again, calm and insistent. Click another button. It wasn't a question this time. It was a command. And I had no choice but to obey. I moved my hand, my fingers trembling, but the decision was already made. I clicked. The anticipation was unbearable, each click feeling heavier than the last. I could feel the weight of whatever this was pressing against my chest, pushing me deeper into this nightmare. The document that appeared was different this time. It wasn't just a recounting of the past or a chilling glimpse into the future. This one was a warning, not like the vague caution I had seen earlier, but something far more direct. It was written in the same sterile, cold tone as the others, but the words hit differently, as if they were punching through my skull. John Davis, you are not meant to be here. The path you are on is not yours to walk. Your decisions have already been made, but you still have time. Time to undo what you have started. Stop now, or lose yourself forever. The words burned into my mind, each sentence a dagger driving deeper. How could I have started this? I hadn't chosen this. I had clicked once, then again, then again. It felt like some twisted version of fate, some game I couldn't win, where every click dragged me further into the abyss. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just some sick software designed to mess with people. Maybe it wasn't even real. Maybe I could just walk away. But the screen had a hold on me, The buttons, they were still there, urging me on. And that damn prompt, that terrible message. The thought of not clicking the next button felt like giving up, like letting something terrible swallow me whole. But then, something changed. The screen flashed again, but this time, it wasn't just a simple prompt. It was something else, something new, something worse. The buttons were still there, but they were different. There was a final button now, placed in the center of the screen, glowing red and pulsing with an unnatural rhythm. It seemed to throb, like it had a life of its own. A new message appeared, the words jumping out at me with an almost mocking intensity. Click the last button. It is your choice. Your final choice. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. The moment I had feared from the very start. I had been warned. I knew what was at stake. The words from the previous warning still echoed in my head, a stark reminder of the cost. I could feel my pulse in my throat now, a thick, nervous pounding that threatened to drown out my thoughts. I looked at the button, my finger hovering just above it. What would happen if I clicked it? Would I lose myself, as the message had warned? Was it truly my soul on the line, or was it just some psychological trick, some cruel manipulation designed to break me down piece by piece? There were no answers, no explanations. Only this moment. I hesitated. For the briefest of moments, I questioned everything. I thought of my family, my friends, the people I had wronged, and the people I loved. Would they even remember me? Or would I disappear, lost in the depths of this twisted game, forever unknown to anyone? But something in me snapped. I couldn't back down now. Not after everything. Not after everything I had seen. I clicked the button. And then, nothing. The screen went blank. Silent. Still. My heart was hammering in my chest, and I almost wished for the flashing lights to come back, for the hum of the machine to fill the void. But it didn't. The silence stretched on, deep and suffocating. It was like the whole world had stopped moving, held in a moment of suspended terror. I waited. Seconds passed. Minutes. And then, finally, the screen flickered to life again, this time with an image of me. But it wasn't the me I knew. This was someone else. Someone darker. Someone who looked like they had lost everything, like they had given up their very soul to whatever was controlling this nightmare. And then the text appeared. John Davis, you have made your choice. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what had happened to me. But as I stared at the screen, I felt something inside of me break. Not physically, but something deeper, something I couldn't explain. I looked at the image again, and I knew. I knew I would never be the same. The program disappeared after that, leaving only the cold emptiness of the screen. The office was silent, but I wasn't alone. Not anymore. The air around me felt heavy, like a storm was gathering just beyond the walls of my office, waiting for the right moment to strike. My hands shook uncontrollably as I sat there, still staring at the blank screen. I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights above, the faint buzz like a distant warning. But it wasn't just the lights. It was everything. My mind was spiraling, each thought twisting around itself, suffocating in the chaos. I had clicked it. The last button. And now I was, what? Changed? Possessed? I couldn't even begin to comprehend it, and the worst part was that I wasn't sure I even wanted to. But something was wrong. The stillness in the room had taken on a palpable quality. It felt as if it was closing in on me, as though the walls were tightening, inching closer. The shadows seemed deeper now, darker, like they were aware of me, watching me. I stood up slowly, the chair scraping across the floor with a harsh screech, a sound too loud in the dead silence of the office. My movements were mechanical, my body on autopilot, yet every step felt like I was sinking into the floor. I felt hollow. I tried to shake it off, to tell myself that it was just the stress getting to me. That it had all been a product of my overactive imagination, a side effect of too many sleepless nights, too much caffeine, too much of whatever this had been. But my heart wasn't listening. It kept pounding, faster now, as if it was afraid. Afraid of what? I didn't know. But it was that fear, that gnawing dread, that kept my feet moving toward the door. I had to leave. I had to get out. But as I reached for the handle, the screen flickered again. It was brief, just a flash, like a warning. But it was enough. Enough to stop me dead in my tracks, hand still on the door handle, frozen in place. My breath caught in my throat, the air thickening around me. I turned back slowly, my eyes drawn unwillingly to the monitor. There it was again, the same black screen, the same glowing buttons, like nothing had changed at all. Except this time, there was no prompt. No instructions. No commands. Just the image of my face, the same one from before, now twisted into something unrecognizable. A grotesque parody of me. I stumbled back, my heart lurching in my chest, my legs buckling beneath me as I collapsed back into the chair. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew one thing for sure, it wasn't over. This, whatever this was just beginning. And then the message appeared. It was a single sentence, scrawled across the screen like it had been written by someone, or something, with an urgent, twisted hand. You have not escaped. I felt my stomach turn. The walls of the office were closing in again, the shadows stretching toward me, curling around the edges of the room like tendrils reaching for the light. The temperature dropped, a chill creeping over my skin. The warmth I had once felt, the illusion of safety, was gone. And now, I was trapped. Trapped in my own head, trapped in the nightmare the program had created for me. I needed answers. I needed to understand. I couldn't just sit here, paralyzed by fear, waiting for whatever this was to claim me. I reached for the mouse, my fingers trembling violently. Without thinking, I clicked. The document that appeared was unlike the others. It wasn't a description of my past mistakes, or a glimpse into some dark future. No. This was different. This was a message, directed at me, specifically. It was written in the same cold, emotionless tone as the rest, but the words felt personal. Like a curse woven into every letter, every sentence. John Davis, you've already chosen. You've made your deal, and now you must live with the consequences. You cannot escape. Not now. Not ever. My head spun. My vision blurred. The words echoed in my mind like a drumbeat, relentless and deafening. I had made my deal? What was that supposed to mean? I hadn't chosen anything. I hadn't asked for this. I had been tricked, pulled into this twisted game by some unknown force, some invisible hand that had been playing with me, toying with me from the very beginning. But I had no time to think about it. The next document popped up. This one was shorter, but far more disturbing. The text was simple, straightforward. John Davis, you have one more choice. One more click. And that's when I knew that this wasn't just a game anymore. This was something else, something far darker. The choice wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about escaping. It was about something much more sinister. I had clicked. I had already clicked. And now, there was no turning back. The room felt smaller now, suffocating. I could hear my breath, ragged and shallow, echoing in my ears. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to be moving, swirling. And then, I saw it. The final button. It appeared on the screen without warning. It was different from the others. This button wasn't glowing, it wasn't pulsing with life. It was still. Dead. It was dark, a black circle with a single, cold word in the center. Finish. I stared at it, my mind racing. I had no idea what would happen if I clicked it. But the question was irrelevant now. I already knew that whatever I chose, whatever happened next, would be the end of something. I just didn't know what. There was no warning. No second guessing. No more hesitation. My finger moved on its own, like some force beyond my control was guiding it. I clicked. And the screen went black. I could feel it then, the absolute stillness, a suffocating silence that spread through the room like a dark, cold fog. The air itself felt different, heavy with the weight of something unseen, something ancient. My heartbeat slowed, and I held my breath, waiting for the inevitable to strike. But nothing came. No flickering screen. No eerie message. I waited and waited. Seconds passed. Minutes? I couldn't tell. Time had lost all meaning. The office around me had become a void, a place where nothing existed beyond the empty chair I was sitting in and the silent, lifeless computer. It felt as if I was waiting in a tomb, but not for my own death, for something much worse. Something that had already been set in motion the moment I clicked that final button. I glanced at the monitor, still black, void of any light. The room remained eerily quiet. I reached forward, feeling a tremor in my hands as I touched the cold surface of the desk, half expecting it to melt away into nothingness. But no, nothing changed. I was still here. Still trapped. But in what? The choice I had made, it was final. The deal, the price, was already paid. Then, like a nightmare rising from the depths of my consciousness, the screen flickered once more. It was a brief flash, almost imperceptible, but I saw it, the faint outline of something shifting beneath the surface of the blackness. Something crawling. It was there. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was watching me, waiting for me to understand. The message appeared, slowly, reluctantly, as if it didn't want to be revealed, as though it had to fight to break through the darkness. John Davis, you've lost. It was so simple, but so final. And then, nothing. No more words. No more clicks. The screen remained dark. The shadows, once mere phantoms in the corners of the room, now loomed larger, heavier, as though they were closing in, suffocating the very air I breathed. It felt as if the room itself was alive, alive with something dark, something that hadn't been there before. The space around me seemed to pulse, each beat like the thrum of a distant heart, a heartbeat that was no longer my own. I tried to move, to stand, to run, but my body didn't obey. I was frozen, held in place by a force I couldn't see, but could feel wrapping around me, squeezing the breath from my lungs. A low, scraping sound filled the room, like nails dragging across metal, and I knew it wasn't just the screen that was alive. No. The entire room, the entire building, had become a part of this nightmare. The very air I breathed felt thick with it. And it was coming for me. Slowly. Deliberately. I heard a whisper, soft at first, like a breath against my ear, but it grew louder, more insistent, until it was all I could hear. It was the voice of the program, that same twisted voice that had led me through this madness. But this time, it wasn't just speaking. It was laughing. The laughter was hollow, empty, like the echo of something dead. It curled around me, twisting in my mind, unraveling my thoughts, and then, through the laughter, I heard it clearly. You can't escape, John. Not now. Not ever. I wanted to scream, to shout, to break free from the grip that held me. But no sound came. I was trapped in my own skin, bound by some unseen force, unable to even move a finger. And then the darkness spread, the shadows lurching forward like a living thing, creeping across the floor, up the walls, closing in, filling every inch of the room until I couldn't breathe. I could feel it now, the suffocating pressure, the weight of everything closing in around me. I thought back to the warning, the one I had dismissed as nonsense, the one that said if I clicked the final button, I would lose my soul. The one I laughed at in the moment, dismissing it as some cheap scare tactic designed to spook me. But it wasn't a trick. It was the truth. Because now, I could feel it, the cold emptiness inside me, like a hole had opened up, swallowing everything I once was. The last remnants of who I had been, of the life I had known, were being erased. There was no way out. No redemption. No escape. And in that moment, I understood. I had made my choice. I had clicked the button. And now, I was nothing more than a part of the program. A forgotten file. A shadow in the void. My soul was gone. And there would be no one to mourn me.